I'm very happy to welcome everybody on behalf of ACM-W, the entire team, to the first in our webinar series on Careers in Tech 2021. So thank you so much for being here. Each of these webinars would feature guests from industry who are experts in their profession and leaders in their profession to talk about careers in technology and share some of their insights. But just to give you a little bit of background on ACM-W UK before we kick off, it's a professional body for the UK region, and it's for academics and industry professionals within the field of computing and related STEM subject areas. We believe in promoting, supporting, and celebrating women and their contributions to the field of computing and related areas. So for today's session, the first webinar in the series, I'm particularly honored to introduce our guest for today to you. Gbemi is a vice president in the Prime Services Technology Division at BNP Paribas Bank in New Jersey, where she's responsible for managing the implementation of large-scale complex financial systems. Her career in financial services technology started in the City of London, after which she moved to New York, where she has worked with multiple global financial services. Gbemi has a B.Sc in computer engineering from the Obafemi Awolowo University Nigeria. She has a postgraduate diploma in computer science from the University of Cambridge, a master's in information systems engineering from the University of Manchester, and an MBA from Columbia University. She currently resides in Bayonne, New Jersey. So we're going to start off with a talk from Gbemi, and then we'll go into a question and answer session. So Gbemi, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And I'll hand over to you now.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay. Hi, everybody. It's my honor to be here today. I am really happy to meet all of you. I'm going to start with a little bit of a background about myself. And just before I start, I'd want this to be sort of an interactive session. So yeah, I don't want to talk too much. I'd certainly like to know what you guys want to know from me. And I really want this to be more of a discussion as opposed to just me talking. But I'll start with a little bit of background about myself. I started my career in technology many years ago. I actually started working about 20 years ago. I started as like Funmi said, I started working as a developer for a company that provided a lot of solutions for financial services companies. So it was a technology company, but it did a lot of solutions for investment banks, especially settlement systems and processing systems. That was where I started. I worked with that company for a few years, and then I moved to New York and then went into really more core development, building out systems for banks. And you know, when we say, I use these generic terms because I've worked in so many different divisions in the banks. I started more with technology, like what we would call custody technology, which is really how securities, where you keep your securities, and all of the accounting and the processing that has to do with that. And then gradually I moved into financial services. And financial services in a bank is, prime services, I would say. And prime services in the bank is usually the area of the bank that services hedge funds. If you're familiar with investment banking, there's usually a division within the large investment banks that has clients as hedge funds, and we provide a whole ton of services to hedge funds. And those services, you know, there's this umbrella term that we would refer to them as prime services, and the banks are referred to as prime brokers. And over the years, the more interesting thing is I've moved away from core development. I don't really work as a developer anymore, and I work more as a project manager, and a business analyst, right? So at least in my career, in a sense, it's almost like I've always worked within technology, but I've moved away from core technology in a sense. And I think in a sense, my career shows you how broad technology can be, right? So there are quite a few of us on the platform. I'd like to see, almost from a show of hands, how many people are already in technology careers and they just want to see you're on this platform because you want to understand how you should be thinking about your career, what kind of areas of your career you should be focusing on, or how you should actually be thinking about growing your career, right? Growing in your career, versus how many people are not in technology at all, and your goal here is, how do I get into technology? It can be sort of do a show of hands of one or the other, although I can't see. Can I see the hands? Okay, I can't. Yeah, I can't really see people's hands, but I asked that question because I think I suspect that most people are either in one of these two areas, right? And even if you're whichever area you are, I guess the first question one has to ask is, what really is technology? Because everybody says, oh, careers in tech, careers in tech, careers in tech. And technology is such a wide ranging word. It's like this massive umbrella word. So the first thing you want to ask is, what exactly is, when we say career in tech, what is it that we're really talking about, right? And you can always think of tech as almost like, in different ways, but I like to think of it in two simple ways, because, to distill it down, you want to think of it in two simple ways. And one is that there's the part of technology that I think of almost as application development, which are people building solutions for industry. You're building some kind of solution for some kind of industry. You could be building it for yourself, you could be building it in a company, you could be building it as a consultant for a company. But at the end of the day, what you're doing is, at the end of the day, when you're done, you're going to develop a solution, and that solution will be used in some kind of industry. That's one. And then the other part of technology is what I think of as infrastructure, which is really the infrastructure that hosts the solution. So you're not necessarily building a solution that will be used in industry, but whatever you build needs to be supported or live in some kind of infrastructure. And the company that I like to think of that gives a good example of this is Amazon. So if you look at Amazon, right? Amazon started as a platform where you could sell books. That was actually really how Amazon started, right? And you can think of that's a solution, right? There was this online platform where if you wanted to buy a book, you could go there, you could search through the books, read reviews. I don't even think you could look inside the pages at that time, but basically you could order a book and the book would show up on your doorstep, and that's a solution. But what Amazon found was, as they expanded and they started selling everything to everybody, they needed massive infrastructure to support all of that, right? And they had so much infrastructure that they actually started offering even this infrastructure as a service. So Amazon has a service that they refer to as Amazon Web Services. I don't know if everybody's aware of that, but they started Amazon Web Services because they were using that web service to host their own infrastructure. And then they had access and they thought, you know what, we could actually provide this as a service to people. And anybody can go and order infrastructure on Amazon. I can actually go and order infrastructure on Amazon Web Services today if I wanted to. So and I think of those two parts of technology as being very different from each other. And the people that work in them, they certainly offer very different career paths. And I think that these are some of the choices that people make early on, where they think, you know what, I want to be really technical, where I want to focus on infrastructure, building out infrastructure, or I want to provide, a solution to people, and I'm going to just focus on building out applications and solutions, right? Those are sort of like the two areas where I think, at least that's the way I think of it, right? Now, when we talk about those two areas, then we start to think about it in terms of, okay, if I wanted to go into a career in technology today, right? How can I do that? That I think that's some of the questions that most people, at least in most people's minds, how do I go into a career in technology? And broadly, again, there are three ways I think of. One is you could work for yourself. And I would say that that's potentially the most rewarding, but it is also the most demanding. I think most people want to work for themselves because they think, oh, well, it's give me time to do my own thing. I work for myself. But when you work for yourself, it is, in my mind, undoubtedly the most demanding, because the buck stops with you. There are no days off. There are no 6 days. You know what? It's yours, and it's yours to drive to wherever you want to drive it to. So it's unbelievably demanding, but I would say certainly unbelievably rewarding as well, right? You could work for industry, which is what most of us, end up doing, certainly what I've done. And I won't even go into industries. I would say that one of the joys of technology is it doesn't matter what you're studying today, and you have to think of technology like that. I think of technology that it doesn't matter what you're studying today, whatever it is that you're studying, you have to start thinking of how technology impacts your field, because there's no field where technology is not driving that field. So I was talking to somebody, and we were having a conversation, and they were telling me that med students who went into the medical program in the States, at least at a university, were actually mandated as part of their first year mandatory courses, they had to take Python. And like, if you go to university and you're going to study medicine, you wouldn't think that somebody would mandate you to take Python in your first year. But this is exactly where technology is going. Everything is being driven by technology. And so I would say that, it doesn't matter what you're studying, you have to start thinking, okay, how does technology impact my field? What is technology to my field, and how does technology impact my field? Right? And let me back off here. If you're in technology, there are two types of people in technology. There are people that actually know the technology, and they are, sort of writing code and using the technology. But there are also a lot of people who are not very deeply technical people, but they know the industry. And it takes both of these people to actually develop a product. And to bring out a product that works, it takes people that know the technology and people that know the industry. So I know a lot of people are thinking, how do I, sort of get into technology? If you know industry, I think if there's an industry that you know very, very, very well, then you're getting very, very close to technology. Because then the next question you have to ask is, how does technology impact this industry? And it's not, that knowledge of the industry is actually very useful from a technical perspective. Let's put it that way, right? But that's the second one, is like you work for industry. And then the third one is you freelance. And I think that that's the one that is the least demanding, right? In today's world, there's so many platforms, Freelancer, Upwork, Fiverr, they're just so many platforms where people offer their services, and people, sort of look for freelancers. And, if you know a technology, there, I can assure you that there's somebody out there that needs a product, that needs that knowledge and wants to build a product and doesn't want to learn the technology. They just need your services to build a product and get the product out, right? And so, in a sense, if you start thinking about a career in technology, I think you want to start thinking about it from one of those three areas, right? Do I want to do it something for myself? And again, I would say that that's the most rewarding. It's the startup world. It's certainly it's the one that takes the most out of you, because if you want to do something for yourself, you have to know a lot. You have to know not just technology, you have to know marketing, you have to sort of have a broad range of knowledge, but certainly the most rewarding. Do I want to work in the industry, which is what most people do? And there's like an unending list of industries that you can work for. I can't think of an industry that is not dependent on technology. And in my industry, if I look at my industry, which is finance, I mean, all my life, I've always worked in finance, and I'm not a banker, I'm not an accountant, but if technology goes down, the system's like, we don't have a bank. The banking just runs on technology, right? So there's working for industry, and then there's freelancing, right? Those are the three things. But just in terms of roles, and then the next thing I think of is, if you wanted to work in technology, what are the roles that are available? Like I said, there are roles that are not very technical. There are design roles in technology, believe it or not. So if you wanted to, for instance, build out an application for yourself, right? The first thing you would want to do is to find somebody who is actually not very technical, or you could be that person, to actually design the application. And believe it or not, application design is incredibly important, because the term that is used in industry is user experience, but design defines the user experience. So whoever is designing it defines the experience that the users will have. And when you go on an application and using an application, no matter how simple it is, Facebook, Instagram, Amazon, a lot of the applications are designed to give you a certain experience and to elicit a certain behavior out of the user. So there's a lot of psychology that goes into UX design. There's a lot of human behavior thinking that goes into UX design, but that's one of the one of the areas that people don't think of as technology, but it's a huge part of technology, right? Is a design. And then there's sort of like the developer. Let's jump to that. There's sort of like a developer that then builds out the application in some language, but there's in between the developer and the designer, there's sort of like this quasi-technical person that translates that design into a more technical framework, usually, and that person generally would manage the whole process as well. So you would think of that, I mean, we generally refer to those kind of people as business analysts or project managers. They are the ones that are sort of translating between the user and the designer, right? The end user and the developer. And then there's architects. So architects are people that sort of build out, I mean, because at the end of the day, we talk of technology, we use that term, but once you build a solution, that solution lives within an ecosystem. There's no solution that is living out there on its own by itself, just doing something. If you download an app, even the most basic app on your phone, that app lives within an ecosystem. There's infrastructure that supports it. There's all of the communications with the outside world. So, and all of that is designed, that the way that ecosystem functions is designed by people that we refer to as system architects, right? So they're people that are designing the way that the whole system functions. And they are, I mean, generally we refer to them as architects, but they're not very different from architects that build houses. They just happen to build systems, right? So you think of them like that. And then there's, once the system is live, they're the people that maintain it. They're the people that make sure that things are working. If something breaks, they're the people that fix it, so that people like us don't realize that something is broken. So they're just all of, and those kind of people we refer to as DevOps, right? So there's that broad range of people. I haven't really talked about this in terms of the different areas of technology, like languages and things like that, because I think that is so fungible. Like, honestly, yeah, they're experts in certain languages, but if you're a developer, it's not that hard to pick up one language from another. They're different, but it's not that difficult to go from one to the other. But the way to think of of roles is really in this broad sort of verticals, and to then start thinking, okay, which of these areas do I want to be, right? And in a sense, that's sort of like the broad spectrum. I don't want to talk too much. Like I said, I want to start to just sort of go into questions very quickly, just so that I know that the conversation is in line with what people are sort of expecting. So I know Funmi had said that we should sort of talk for a few more minutes, but I'm going to start to open it up to questions now, and then start to take questions, or even take some of the questions that are that people had submitted earlier, just so that I keep the conversation in line with what people are interested in, right? I'm very keen to make sure that this is also very interactive, right?
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Gbemi. So we're opening it up to questions. So we had asked beforehand for people to submit questions, and people have, but we're also open to live questions, which you might just want to ask Gbemi. So you can put it on the chat, or you can just come off mute and go ahead with your questions. So if you have a question, please go ahead. So while people are putting together the questions, Gbemi, I would ask you a few from the ones that have already been sent to us, if that's all right.
Okay. Go ahead.
So the first one says, is it possible to break into the industry without a computer science or technology degree?
The short answer is yes. The short answer to that is yes. I think that, yeah, actually it is common for people to not even have a technology degree when they go into the industry. There are loads of people who don't, I was listening to somebody the other day who was in medicine, and they said, oh, they changed and moved over to technology. So the short answer to that is yes. And it's even interesting. I would say that the way I see the industry going is that the industry is placing less and less emphasis on degrees and more emphasis certainly on your knowledge or competence. I think this is, in a sense, if you look at it from sort of professional fields, I would say that technology is one of the more open fields in terms of degrees. It's not as rigid as some other professional fields. You certainly don't have to have a degree. If you have a degree, it helps. I think if you have a degree, you have a better understanding of the theoretical underpinnings of some of the things that you're doing. But that's what the degree gives you, and it gives you sort of like a broad knowledge of the different areas. But you don't need a degree to break into the industry, and you certainly don't need a degree to succeed in the industry. I think what you need to break into the industry and what you need to actually succeed is a determination to learn. I think if you have a determination to learn and you know what you want to learn, there are a million resources that are available. I mean, one of the things that people actually do in today's world, if you're looking for a job, is that you can build a system, for instance, just build your own system, whatever it is that system. Look, if you have a problem, you can build some technology to solve it, just your own personal problem, right? People build technology to, scan their emails and, put their emails into different folders. There's something that simple, like you don't want to go through your email and assign it to folders. You can like build a little piece of code to do that. And people generally would put their work on places like GitHub, which is like a public code repository. And so recruiters who are looking for people that are technically savvy, have access to your work. And once you have work out there that people even forget recruiters, other technology people can actually sort of look at your code, pick your code if it's public, and develop on it. And once you certainly have technology out there like that is available to everybody, and you've shown your competence, then the sky is the limit, really. So you don't need a degree. Now, that said, I would also sort of put an it depends on that. And it depends on, and when I say it depends on the industry. I think some industry are more open to just people who know their stuff than other industries. The core tech companies, I believe it was Facebook recently, I think a couple of years ago, Facebook actually made a statement and said that they were not a degree, they were removing a degree from one of the requirements from hiring technology people. Like you actually don't have to have a degree to work for Facebook. I think that the core technology companies are certainly more forward-looking in these respects than more traditional companies. So if you're looking at more traditional companies like banking, more traditional companies like maybe the insurance industry, or more traditional companies that, they would require a degree, but they don't require a degree because you actually need a degree to do the job per se. They just require a degree because traditionally that's what they do. Number two, it helps a lot of companies with hiring. So where do companies hire from? Companies tend to hire from schools, right? So if you're trying to get into an industry and you're out of school, then you will get to meet companies and your likelihood of getting hired is much higher. It's just the schools are just an easy way for companies to funnel in new talent. So, having a degree puts you in front of the right people, but it's certainly not a requirement. And I think it's going to become less and less a requirement as time goes on.
Great, thank you very much for that, Gbemi. So we have a question in the chat. We have a few. So we've got one that says, to get into the industry, do you think it is necessary to first start with an internship, especially for a fresh graduate PhD student?
Again, no. I mean, it depends on what you were doing as part of your PhD. I mean, if you let's back up a little bit. You certainly don't have to start with an internship. That's one. And even if you're going to start with an internship, then you want to start with an internship, maybe because you feel, well, I don't know technology, then you certainly want to start with an internship in a company that has a more defined internship program. A lot of companies, they have internship programs, but they also assume that their interns know a certain amount of technology actually when they're hired, right? Because, you know, we hear the stories of 10-year-olds writing code. Like, anybody can pick up code and write code. So there's almost and a lot of people that come into internship programs actually have already done some development as part of their schoolwork. So there's almost an expectation that if you get into an internship program, you're actually writing code from day one. What you might not know, and what the internship program helps you to do, is to navigate the industry. Because the thing about technology is, especially if you're going into industry, is it doesn't run in a silo. It's not like I'm trying to think of another industry, like almost like if you're like in accounting, right? Accounting has its rules, and it almost doesn't matter too much which industry you're in, those rules are the same. Whereas technology, your experience of technology is very, very dependent on the organization in which you work. So for instance, I work in banking, and the way that technology is used, the kind of technologies that we use is very different, right? Than it would be if I worked in, say, healthcare, right? Like in banking, for instance, we don't use, images are not a big part of technology in banking, right? Data, high volume data is a big part of technology, but images, for instance, are not a big part of technology in banking, at least not today. Not to say that they won't be, but it's not a core part of what we do, right? If you were, say, in healthcare, right, then, you know, image technology would be a big part of what you're doing, right? So in a sense, you don't have to go in with an internship if you have core knowledge, right? If you're writing code in Python, you're writing code in Java, you're writing code in any of these things, what the internship gives you is more of an understanding of the industry that you're now working in. Because I think to be successful in technology, you really, especially if you're working in industry, you want to have a good understanding of that industry. And that's the part that you learn, right? But the technology today, you know, I would say if you want to get into it, yeah, just start learning it. Don't wait for an internship program. Don't say, oh, I'm going to, you know, go into this internship program in this company next year, and then I'll start learning Java then, or I'll start learning Python then. If you want to work as a developer, I would say pick it up now, start now, right? Definitely. And then there are a lot of tools online that help with that, but certainly it'll start now. Did I answer that question?
I think you did.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Yes, it says that you did. Thank you very much. So I have another question in the chat box, which says, which role, designer, developer, architect, etc., do most successful entrepreneurs perform?
Okay, entrepreneurship, that's a very interesting question, right? And entrepreneurship is the least role dependent. If you go and work in industry, you will be working, especially if you're working in a big company, you'll be working in a role, and that role will be pretty much defined, and you're not going to be doing much of something else unless you make a conscious decision to move. So if you're working in industry as a business analyst, you could work as a business analyst all your life, and you will never be a developer if you don't want to be, right? If you are an entrepreneur, which means you're starting your own company, you've seen like, oh, okay, there's a gap here, and I'm going to build out this app. I can tell you now that as an entrepreneur, you have to be, that's when you have to learn to wear multiple hats, and you're not really stuck in a role. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to learn, you have to at least understand to a good extent what each of these roles do, because you're either, when you start off, it's either you are actually, think about it, you're going to be your own business analyst, you're going to be your own developer. You don't really have the luxury of hiring people into roles, right? You're an entrepreneur, you have limited budget, you're trying to build out a system. You have to go talk to the customers, understand what it is that they want, build out the system, right? Test it, and you're doing this very, very fast. Entrepreneurship is the one that is, because it doesn't matter. I was thinking about this. It doesn't matter what you think people want. The only measure of success in entrepreneurship is, at the end of the day, what people use. And people that have been in the system for many years can go and build something and they think everybody's going to love this and nobody uses it. And people build out things and think nobody's going to like this and everybody loves it, right? So the test for entrepreneurship is user uptake. The technical term is product market fit, right? The test for entrepreneurship is that you've built a system and people are actually using it. So for you to build it, so if you think of entrepreneurship, it's not enough to say, oh, I'm a developer, I'm going to build a system. I have to be a developer, I have to be an analyst, I have to understand how to talk to customers, I have to be able to reiterate and update this system very, very quickly, because the earlier I figure out what people want, the quicker I'm going to have a product that, you know, is actually viable in the marketplace. So when you think of entrepreneurship, I would say don't think of it in terms of roles. You have to think of entrepreneurship in terms of products. You're trying to get a product out to the marketplace, and you're trying to get a product out to the marketplace successfully. And a lot of times you have to wear multiple hats to do that. That said, unless it's a really technical product, you would not really, I think something like a system architect is not going to be sort of like the role that you want to go. You'll end up, you know, either as a developer or as almost like a technical marketer or some combination of both. And the ecosystem, you would invariably depend on sort of a whole bunch of tools and products that are already out there to serve as sort of like the underlying architectural foundation for your system. Unless you're also trying to change the architecture world, there's some systems that do that. But if it's more of an end user type of product, then it's less likely that you'll be an architect. But if you are an entrepreneur or you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to be ready to think of this from, you have to be ready to live a life of fungibility, where you move through roles very, very quickly, even multiple times a day, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. It's really interesting and very insightful, the way you said to think about it more focusing on the products and not so much roles, because you have to be flexible.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Entrepreneurship is all about products that people use.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone, please continue to bring your questions. Put it in the chat, come off mute if you want to just say them. But while we wait for more live questions, I'll carry on with the questions that we've been sent. The next one says, which online courses are recognized by companies?
Okay, that's a very, very interesting question. And most companies, I mean, don't think of courses, but I think, for instance, in the infra world, in the systems architect, networking, like in the infrastructure world, then certifications help. In my experience, and you know, in my experience, in the infrastructure world, certification helps, right? If you want to be a security analyst or a networks engineer, then certainly some of these Cisco certifications, those kind of certifications help. In the developer world, I think certifications help, but a lot less impactful. I think developers, it's a question of what you can build, right? Or what your technical knowledge is, and you know how competent you are from a technical perspective. And certifications don't help so much. Now, if you're a developer though, and you have a role in an industry, you've worked in a certain industry, industry knowledge helps, right? And in fact, in my world, you will find that most people who work in banking on the tech side will stay in banking on the tech side. And in fact, if people work in a particular area of technology, like I said, I work in prime services, you would find that most people would stay in prime services because it's just a certain type of industry knowledge that understands how hedge funds work and how they interact with banks and all of the services that they need. And most people that don't work in that industry they don't even know that that kind of thing exists. They don't even think about it. They're like, what is that? When I tell people I work in prime brokerage, most people are like, what is that? But if it's somebody that works in prime brokerage, everybody knows what that means. So just having that industry knowledge certainly works on the developer side. It's most important on the BA side, right? Because if you're trying to interpret the business functions to a developer, then you really need to understand what those business functions are, right? So that happens. But if you're thinking about certification, in my mind, certifications are most impactful in infrastructure areas, right? So networking, securities, and by securities, I mean risk and securities, right? Those kind of things. In those areas, certifications help, they matter. In development and some of these other areas, in my mind, I don't think certifications matter as much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I have another question in the chat, which says, what ways to raise funds for the new business in IT can you recommend?
Okay. That's a very, 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 very good question. I've always worked in industry, but I'm very interested in the entrepreneurship area. So this is an area that I'm very familiar with. And I'll tell you that in entrepreneurship, the only thing that matters where money is concerned, right, are products that people are using. If you have a product, right, and you can prove that there's an upward uptake of that product, right, investors will be following you with money. The reason why it's hard for a lot of people to raise money is because they haven't proven that people want this product. And the question then is, how do you prove that people want a product? If you have an app, right, and that you have that app on the App Store, for instance, right, then the proof that people want the product is the number of downloads of the app. It's really that simple. I mean, there are other things like in terms of how long they spend on the app, but the most important proof is the number of downloads, right? Now, and this is where technology, you find that technology, just core technology is not enough. Now, there are how many millions of apps on the App Store? So if I upload, and from a technology perspective, this is how technology entrepreneurs think. They think, well, I'm going to, I've seen this problem, and I think everybody has this problem. My friend has it, my mom has it, like people around me have it. So I'm going to build a solution to solve this problem, right? And once I build the solution, because everybody has this problem, everybody is going to use my app to solve their problem, and then that's it. And we all live happily ever after. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that, because you will find when you upload, this is what people do, and they spend a lot of time building out technology, and then they upload it onto the App Store, and crickets. Nobody even downloads it. And the number one reason why nobody downloads it is because nobody knows it's there. Let's even start there. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, honestly, marketing, in fact, I also have an MBA, and this is one of the things. In fact, you always want to validate that customers want your product. The first question you want to find out is, where am I going to find the people that are going to use this product? And you might think that that's an easy question, but honestly, if I built an app today, somebody told me about Clubhouse a few days ago, which is this app where some radio app where people go and talk and blah, blah, blah. But whoever built Clubhouse, right? They built an app where you can just set up a room and have a conversation and anybody can come. Well, where do I find all these people that want to have a conversation? Well, you can say everybody wants to have a conversation. No, nobody wants to have a conversation. Where do I find the people? So you find out that with entrepreneurship, marketing is by far, in my mind, the most important thing, more important than the technology. Understanding marketing and even using technology for marketing, building in viral loops and things like that. Because if you always want, if your product has enough of an uptake, money will be chasing after you. I can tell you, I work in banking, there's a lot of money sitting, there are people who invest for a living. So their job is to find the next big thing and put money into it, right? The reason why they won't put money into an app is because they're not really sure that this is the next big thing, right? So if you are able to prove that there's an uptake for your app, then, I mean, there's no shortage of, there's a whole bunch of money on. I mean, you could go on there. All kinds of places. There's Y Combinator. There are all kinds of incubators. You can put it, on. It's one of the first things is if you put your product. I'm not really sure about the UK, but certainly in America there are all kinds of websites like Product Hunt or Kickstarter. And really, what's the purpose of Kickstarter, for instance? What Kickstarter is trying to measure is public interest in a product. That's all Kickstarter is trying to measure, is public interest in a product. And if there's enough public interest, then there's always money. So I would say, focus on marketing, focus on getting people on your platform. And once you have product market fit, raising money is going to be the least of your problems.
Great, thank you very much for that, Gbemi. So the next question that I have on the chat says, are there any cities or regions other than Silicon Valley that are big tech hubs today? Are there cities that are likely to become such tech hubs in the near future?
Okay, yeah. I'll tell you of the ones I know. I would say I've been to tech hubs in Cape Town. There are tech hubs in New York City. There are meetups in New York City where there's a growing tech community. In the States, for instance, there's a part of North Carolina, though there's a whole, in the Raleigh, North Carolina area is more of a biomed tech hub. So it's not your core tech, but there's a whole biomed tech hub in North Carolina. So there are lots of cities all over the world that are tech hubs. It's not just San Francisco. I think if you have a core tech idea, right? Certainly San Francisco is a good place to be because a lot of the VCs, what would be, let me back up a little bit. What would Y Combinator give you? Like if you had an idea and then you went on something like Y Combinator, what would be the purpose? Because if you went on something like Y Combinator, when you're done, they would give you, I think they give you like $100,000 or whatever, and they take 7% of your company, which might seem like, oh, that's not a big deal, but that's a chunk for $100,000, But beyond the 100,000, the 100,000 is very tiny. What they give you is, demo day and access to VCs and people that are looking to invest in tech. That's what they give you. So I wouldn't say that I'm the authority on the best places for tech hubs, but there are different cities that tend to be different hubs for sort of different types of tech. Like I said, North Carolina is more for biomed type tech. San Francisco is like core tech. There's even New York City has its own what they call Silicon Alley. Well, it's not the valley, but there are some alleyways in New York City where there are a lot of tech. Where I would say Meetup is always a good place to start if you're looking for just finding like-minded tech people. Meetup is actually a good place because if there's anything happening in the city around you, then for sure it will be on a place like Meetup, and a lot of those places you can just show up. I've been to like sort of tech meetups where there are 10, 20 of us and we just talk about technology that we're interested in. So the answer to that is yes. It depends on the kind of technology. And if you're looking for one in a city near you, I would certainly recommend looking on Meetup, for sure.
That's great. Thank you. So Meetup, everyone. Check it out. I'm going to, so I've got two in the chat here, but I'm going to combine them with one of the ones that we've been sent because they're kind of similar. So I'm going to give you 3 questions in one, Gbemi.
Okay. All right.
So it says, which maths certifications will help while studying computer science degree? And then the next one says, if I don't have any experience in any field, after an MSc in analysis, which certification course is better? And the final one that I'm tying to that says, are there exams that one could pass to show proficiency and to help get interviews?
I'll tell you, okay, I'm going to start with the last one. I like that one. It says, are there exams that one could pass to show proficiency? So this is my take on technology is, at least because I worked, and I have to be honest, I worked on the developer side. Most of my work has been more on the developer side than on the infra side, right? And on the developer side, at least in banking, we're not so gung-ho on certifications because, people have certifications, but there are real life industry problems. Like for instance, we deal with really high volume data, and it's just unlikely that you would have learned how to sort of solve those kind of problems while studying for a certification, right? A lot of those problems you really learn in industry when you're working. So we don't put that much of an emphasis on certification. But there are, I would say, people, like I said earlier, if you want to go into infrastructure, if you want to go into networking, certainly look into some of the Cisco certifications, CCNA, network certified, look into certifications. If you want to also go into security, like system security, look into certifications. If, for instance, though, you want to go into, say, data analytics, right, which is like a new developing field and everything is all about data now and what data means, right? I wouldn't recommend certifications, no. What I would recommend is look on a website like Kaggle. So there's this website called Kaggle. I don't know if if there are people that are familiar with it on the call, but there's a website called Kaggle. It's Kaggle, right? And what Kaggle is a website where companies and people will post data problems, and real life companies will post real life data problems. They upload, yeah, exactly, Kaggle.com. Thanks for that. They post real life data problems on Kaggle, right? You can actually go download the data, try and write code to solve any of those problems. And as you're solving it, it actually grades people. So you would see you could be number 1, number 2, number 10. And if you're able to solve problems like that, even if you're not rated high, like if you're not, and you go into an interview with a company that has a Kaggle problem and you've solved that problem before going into that interview, trust me, you're miles ahead from anybody that went before you or went after you and all they had is a certification, right? Because people, I think on the developer side, people are a little bit more wary of certifications because sometimes people study for certifications, but they just don't have the kind of industry knowledge or the industry thinking to actually, put the theory into practice, right? Because this is, we're done with theory now. This is solving real world problems. So people are not, but if on places like Kaggle, you're actually solving real world problems, then you're in a much better place. And I think that places like Kaggle actually help because you have all kinds of problems. You have problems from healthcare, you have problems from real estate, you have problems from banking, you have all kinds of problems from all kinds of industries. So if you work in an industry, you can actually see how you can use data to solve that problem. And you don't even have to want to rank at first. Just even making the attempt is miles ahead, right? Puts you miles ahead of anybody. So that's my advice, is focus on solving real world problems. Don't be too tied to certifications, especially if you want to stay on the application development side of technology.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Someone has asked for an email address to reach you. Do you want us to share your LinkedIn or your...
Yeah, my link, I'm fine. I can share my email address here. I'm going to share it here.
Great stuff. Thank you. So
okay. Let me send it to everyone. just so
Okay,
everybody has it, which is fine.
fantastic. Thank you. So I've still got questions that people have sent beforehand, so I'll carry on with
Okay.
those. But if anyone has any live questions, please put them on the chat or come off mute and we'll take them as well. So the next one says, is working in technology, is it an area that offers a lot of flexibility and part-time options and like?
I can tell you that I think certainly in terms of flexibility, technology is one of the most flexible industries you can be in. That's because technology itself is, like I said, it's a very broad term. People work in healthcare. I've never worked in healthcare before. People work in insurance, people work in banking. And your experience in technology depends on the industry in which you work within technology, right? People work in education. There's really no part of our existence right now, at least as human beings, that is not influenced by technology in some way, shape, or form, right? There's no company that doesn't have a tech department, right? So people work in different areas of technology. I think the good thing about technology is that you have choices of how you work. You could work, like in my industry in banking, you have two choices. One, you could work as an employee, which is where I've always worked. And you can work as a consultant. And usually consultants, there are people that work as consultants, they work 6 months a year and they don't work 6 months for the rest of the year. It's just the way that they work. That's what they want to do. There are people that work for 2 years, they take a break for 1 year, they come back. And this is the thing about technology is if you have your technical competence and you know your stuff, you can go away for 3 years and you will be hired. You're not going to have a problem. You're not going to be worried, oh, am I going to get a job? You will get a job because the jobs are there, right? But that said, your experience depends on the kind of job that you've chosen to take. Like I have taken a more traditional path as an employee, and I just have a more traditional career path, but you don't have to. That's one of the things about I think one of the biggest advantages of technology is you have a choice. You can work as a freelancer, just working on Upwork or some of these websites where you can do that for 6-7 months. You work on a project and you say, well, I want to take the next 3 months off. So I think that technology does give you that. That said, whether you take advantage of that or not depends on you. It depends on what you want for your career personally.
Great, thank you. The next question on the chat says, how important is it to study or have studied at a top university for tech?
Again, it used to be, I can tell you now, I mean, I've worked on Wall Street for the better part of 20 years. And it used to be when I started my career, everybody came from a top college, right? Because the bank actually only went to certain universities to hire. Now, things have changed. I wouldn't even say things are changing. I say things have changed. First of all, no company wants to be seen as elitist, right? So no matter how great you are as a company, I think apart from not even wanting to be seen as elitist, I think people have a better understanding of the power of diversity. So everybody wants a more diverse workforce because there's just a lot of benefit to that as a company. So even the companies have diversified hiring. That's one. And technology, like I said, is certainly at the forefront of that. I would say, I think, for instance, if you're in core banking, yeah, people want to diversify, but there's still more of a tendency to just stick to sort of like the top tier universities. I think with technology, there's actually a more diverse range of people. And in fact, if you're looking at the tech companies themselves, not only are they diversifying to second tier, third tier universities, they're also diversifying in terms of where they hire. So I would say that the answer to that is certainly no. But if you want to go, I will tell you what top tier universities give you. Top tier universities give you a great network. And do not never underestimate the power of network in your career. Networks matter. They have always mattered and they will always matter. So build as large a network as possible. And I think that in my experience, certainly, top tier universities are very good at building a network and just giving you access to a great global network, right? But just, do you need them for a job? Do you need them to get hired? Not necessarily.
Great, thank you, Gbemi. As we start to draw close to the end of the webinar, and it's been really, really fantastic. Again, I'll just say, if anyone has any questions for Gbemi, please put it on the chat or come off mute. I still have quite a few that have been sent. We won't be able to go through all of them, but for those who gave their emails, who wanted the responses, we will be sending them out. So if you've got any other questions for Gbemi, please put it in the chat or please come off mute and share them. So Gbemi, just one or two more before we close. So I have one here that says, what has helped you the most when it comes to career progression and satisfaction?
That's a very, very good question. I think what has helped me the most is making sure that I keep, one is I make sure that I enjoy what I do. So I actually work, I've worked in different areas of banking, which is, and that's why when it comes to the parts of banking that I'm actually a little picky about the parts of banking that I work in. The area of banking that I work in, I actually enjoy because it's more about process. It's more about flows and processes, and for me personally, those are things that I like. So I am very picky. Certain areas that are really more that are more focused on the pure tech, I've kind of stayed away from, just because I want to understand sort of like the big picture of things, right? And so I've made sure that I pick areas where I actually enjoy the work. The second thing is I'm the kind of person that I just like knowledge. I just like to know about things. So for instance, which is why I know so much about entrepreneurship, because I'm not an entrepreneur. I've always worked in industry all my life, but it's a very interesting area for me. So anything that I'm interested in, even if it's not part of my day job, I dig into it. I mean, I watch all kinds of Y Combinator videos. I've done Kaggle competitions. I just, if I enjoy it and I like it and it looks good, I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to learn it, because, you know, why not? Right? And that's one of the things that's the thing. Don't always, which is why I always want to encourage people, do not box yourself into a corner. Don't say, oh, this is who I am and nothing else. No, just, you know, have an open mind. Technology is a big area. If you don't like one part of it and you like another part, move. It's really that simple. Don't stay stuck in one place because this is what I've always done. That's the advice that I would give. Yeah.
That's really great. Thank you so much, Gbemi. So we'll take one final question and then we'll wrap up for the day. It says, do you have any link of companies if I want to volunteer or do a mentorship in order to have practical experience in industry?
So for instance, I mean, my company, I work for Paribas, and I'm not here as a representative of Paribas. I try not to like use that, but definitely every year we take on interns. So I mean, if you reach out to me afterwards, I can sort of dig into our internship program and see. I haven't been as closely involved, if to be honest, but I can dig into it and see, right? The other thing is, don't volunteer. Don't volunteer. I mean, always, I would say, if you have a company that you want to work for in a particular field, right? Go on LinkedIn, see if you know somebody there, reach out to people there. If you don't, I would say look for similar companies, right? But almost every large company has an internship program. The problem with large companies' internship program, in my experience, is they tend to do them from schools. So if you have milk rounds in your school, do not miss those milk rounds. That's like the most important. It's like the easiest way, right? So do not do not miss the milk rounds in the school when the companies, and milk rounds is a term, at least it's a term in America for when companies come around to universities to hire. So do not miss those. Smaller companies, now this is going to also be my advice. You're going to learn a lot more from a small company than you will from a big company. Because small companies don't have a lot of people. So when you get there, you're going to get thrown into the deep end of everything. And look, when we get thrown in the deep end, we don't have a choice but to swim, right? And even if you're an intern, you're not getting, if you're not getting paid much, you're just forced to learn, right? And because smaller companies, roles are more fungible, just because they don't have so many people, you end up wearing multiple hats. You learn a lot more from small companies. That said, big companies, they tend to hire from their intern rounds. So if you have an opportunity and you want a more stable, kind of more corporate career path, then certainly take that, because do an internship, because generally they will offer interns jobs, and then that's how they take in the fresh intakes. So it's always a good place. But if you're really looking to learn, do not disprove the small companies. In terms of links to companies, I have my companies, I have my contacts in industry. So if you reach out to me afterwards, I can certainly find out more about what you're looking for, and I can see if there's any way I can help.
That's great. Thank you so much, Gbemi. It's been a fantastic hour. Thank you so much for being here with us. We really, really appreciate your being here. And I want to say thank you on behalf of ACM-W, on behalf of the entire team, to everyone for being here. We appreciate your being here, and we hope that, and we're sure that it's been a great time for you as well. We hope that you will join us for our other webinars coming up, the next one on the 5th of March, where we would have an expert from the health sector. So today we've dived a bit into the finance sector, and we'll be looking at the health sector then. I really wanted to thank our coordinator, Anastasia, who has been fantastic at coordinating and doing all the advertisements and all that. So thank you so much. So thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you, Gbemi. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank Funmi for organizing the whole series of career intakes webinars. And the first one was amazing. Thank you so much, Gbemi, for running this webinar, and really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.